Greetings, people. Greetings. It's your boy Finesse Tucson. I'm back. Just giving you a little brief, introduction or a little rundown of how I came to, the conclusion where I stand today. With my skepticism. Grew up in the church from the South. I'm from Louisiana. So we all grew up in a church house. Grandparents raised me up. My mother had a few issues going on, so my grandparents took on the responsibility of raising me, and every Sunday morning they put me on the bus, sent me off to church, and from there, pretty much nap time for me, but asked a few questions, it really was more of a hangout thing, as I started getting older, I started getting a little more into the teachings, I'm looking in the back of the Bible, seeing, this faraway maps and all this, Jordan and all this stuff, and just really couldn't relate to it. Would see these pictures of this, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus character that, I just really didn't understand really what was going on. I didn't understand what they were actually doing to me, until I actually grew up, and realized that, hey, man, life is a lot bigger than what they were giving me, So at the age of about 11, moved to Dallas, Texas, started going to Sunday school out there, went to an all-Pentecostal church, First Pentecostal church, all-white church. Little girls in class were liking me and my friends, so one of the Sunday school teachers let us know that black people came from monkeys, and it's pretty devastating to tell a 12-year-old that, so at that point I walked out the class. All of us, all my friends, there was 3 or 4 of us, we all walked out and went home, and we never went back to church. I didn't go back until 4 years later after I moved back to Louisiana, and I ran across this young man in high school that his daddy was a preacher. We would do our homework together, and then, eventually I started going to church with him. This was actually a Church of God in Christ, so, Holy Ghost filled, speaking in tongues, a lot of soulful, rhythms, and it had more of a slave swag to it. If you would ask me, it reminded me of slavery. From what I picture of slaves, shucking and jiving. To me, that's what was going on in there. And being behind the scenes with him, with his father in the house, I started realizing a lot of the hypocrisy and a lot of what was really going on behind the scenes. So, that kind of took me back. At one point I watched a slave narrative called Unchained Memories, where they interviewed slaves after the Civil War, and they started talking about how the slaves began converting to Christianity. So, I asked myself, well, what were they doing before, if they were converting, so, I spoke about that in my earlier video, and that's why I came to Islam, so I went from Christianity to Islam, became a devout Muslim, joined the Nation of Islam, ended up falling in love with the teachings of, Elijah Muhammad. I love Malcolm X. I still to this day love Minister Farrakhan. I don't agree with all their theological arguments, but I do agree with a lot of their political arguments as far as, especially at that time, I thought separation would have been the best thing for us, so I always saw Malcolm from that point. I put Malcolm X above Martin Luther King. I felt like Martin Luther King kind of did as in a sense of disgrace. I know that's shocking to a lot of people, but I just didn't think integration was the best thing for us at that time, especially with everybody who was agreeing with it getting assassinated. So we already know what happens to black leaders who step out for blacks, or even whites who step out on behalf of blacks. They tend to get assassinated a lot. So that sends a pretty deep message to the public. Finally, as far as being with the Nation of Islam, I started realizing that a lot of the teachings didn't make sense. A lot of them seemed false. I would go to the mosque and I would get no respect at the mosque. They were all just like, hey man, you need to come to Allah through Prophet Muhammad. Not Elijah Muhammad. He's just a man, and he's not a true prophet. So these older guys were teaching me. These other older guys with beards and kufis on their heads, teaching me how to pray and things of that nature. I went through Ramadan 1 October where Ramadan in the Nation of Islam is actually practiced in December. So, they were trying to correct me in the correct manner of Islam. So, I had a lot of brothers that were rendering me at the time, teaching me, the true teachings of Prophet Muhammad. They gave me prayer rugs and things like that. And after a while, later on, I ended up getting appointed to the new Black Panther Party in Louisiana. I was actually the minister over the chapter in my city, and I would get material from the people, the headquarters, which was in Houston. I'm not going to mention his name, but they would send me information to share with the public and with my members, and it was basically literature from the Nation of Islam. So I wasn't really trying to go backwards in life. I was trying to move forward and on to new, bigger, and better things. And I just really couldn't share information like that with the public. That the white man is the devil. He's not your brother, and all these types of things. That it started getting more toward racist. And I had already left that. So, but I did want to remain a nationalist, which I still am to this day, a nationalist. I care about the interests of my people first, which every person on the planet has that right. If you're Mexican, you love your Mexicans. What I'm saying? If you're Chinese, you love your Chinese people. If you're white, you look out for white. And I'm not trying to, put down another race. But I mean, even if I'm watching a boxing match and I see a black fighter versus a white fighter, naturally I'm going for the black guy, the so-called black guy. It's just natural. So, but so anyway, with the Black Panthers, I ended up having a member on my elder board that was a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And, we were all networking together. So, I would go study with him. He would come to my meetings and things of that nature. And then I really took a liking to the teachings of Noble Drew Ali, with the Moorish Science Temple, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I found out that Elijah Muhammad was actually a member of the Moorish Science Temple before he started the Nation of Islam. So I just like to go deep into things. I don't just look at everything on the surface. I like to go behind the scenes and see, where these ideas come from, where the influences come from, and things of that nature. So after studying with the Moorish Science Temple, I became a governor with the Moorish Science Temple. And with their, as part of their dogma is there's no afterlife, there's no heaven or no hell. So it was easy for me to give that up. But after, a little falling out with the person that I was studying with, I found out some information that I just couldn't really deal with as far as, some kind of type of history. I really don't want to get into that. I'm not really into, spreading rumors and things like that. But I went back to the church, which was, real difficult to do after Islam, to go back to the church. And I just missed the fellowship, just being around other men who were trying to live right, So I went back to the church house, and, the pastor ended up making me his assistant because he knew about my credentials with other organizations that I had moved up in. And so I said, well, look, I'm going to be preaching the Bible, teaching the Bible. I want to know who wrote it. I had no idea who wrote the Bible. All I know was, the King James Bible. So I started doing my own research on who wrote the Bible. I read the lost books of the Bible. I started reading books by Bart Ehrman. Bart Ehrman was real influential and still to this day in my life. I always wanted to know the arguments against God as well as the arguments for Him. So at that time, I was actually overwhelmed by the information contrary to what I was believing already. So at that point, I decided that I just didn't know. I was an agnostic. And then I finally got the courage, a couple of years later, to decide that, hey, yeah, I am an atheist. I don't believe in a God. Just because I was raised up on something does not make it true. Just because it makes me feel good does not make it true, and I decided that I cared about, what was true. I cared whether my beliefs were real and not just based off of, Bronze Age mythology or astrology, pagan astrology. and things of that nature, because you can see it all throughout the Bible. You know, if you look at it from a critical standpoint, there's a lot of things in there that, you know, like Hades. They're talking about Hades, which is Zeus's brother, in Revelations 12 and 13. That goes over a lot of people's heads. But it's just interesting, this creative art. So here I am today, you know, a minority within a minority, a black atheist, with really no one to that shares my views. You know, we're looked upon as the most untrusted group of people in America. You know, they actually put rapists above us, you know, and most of us are just gentle, kind people, you know, that's just trying to live life to the fullest. You know, we look out for the poor. You know, we don't try to brown nose or ass kiss, you know, to please a God. You know, we do things out of our heart. You know, we love humanity. You know, we love learning. You know, we have great imaginations, you know, but as far as, you know, just believing in something just because you want to believe it, you know, especially things that you really have no way of knowing, you know, we just don't do that. You know, that's the only difference, other than, you know, we're all still humans, you know. We're not afraid of hell, you know, we don't believe in the false hope of heaven. You know, we don't believe in reincarnation. I don't believe I can come back as another person. You know, I just really have no reason to believe that, you know. But I am trying to make a difference in this life, this one life that I know I have, you know, and try to live that to the full, you know. So I just keep striving, keep moving forward, keep trying to, you know, promote positive atheism, you know, because we have a bad stigma on the name right now for some reason. You know, people just are afraid. Even Steve Harvey, I was a little upset when he was talking about, if you're an atheist, you're an idiot. You know, I was really a good fan of Steve Harvey. You know, I really don't too much care for the statement he made, even though I still like him, you know, but I really can't believe he actually said that. But really, I don't have to believe it, you know, because truth doesn't require belief. So, you know, we just try to keep things true. You know, we care whether our beliefs are true and accurate, and we're always willing to change our mind when knowledge has advanced. We're not stuck on stupid, you know. We read literature. I read biblical text. I read the Quran and all this stuff as literature. It's very, very beautiful, you know. But, you know, as far as being true, you know, I mean, you already know what it is about that. But, you know, black people, we got enough damn religion as it is. You know, that's why we stuck on stupid. That's why we stuck where we are now, because we down on our knees begging some God to do things for us when we could really be doing things for ourselves, you know. But